Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So, on today's episode, I've got a very exciting deck tech for you on Lathril, Blade of the Elves. That's right, Elfball Tribal. Here we go. So, on deck techs like this, again, I'm going to be taking you through different tactics, show you how this deck works, and how we're going to win with it. Also, every single card in this deck is less than $1. Except the Commander, which is, let me double check real quick, $4.21 right now. So not quite underneath my $1 mark, but every other card in this deck is less than that $1 mark. So that's a very budget-friendly deck with an estimated cost of, I think it's around $29 or so. I'll have it right around here. I think I'll put that in afterwards anyways. But yeah, around $29 or so. So a very budget-friendly deck. And if you are interested in this deck, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. Now, with all that said, let's jump into the Commander, Lathril, Blade of the Elves, a fantastic Elf Tribal Commander for Golgari Elves. It's great. 2/3 Menace Elf Noble, costing 2 black and a green. When Lathril deals counters to a player, you get that many 1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens and tap. This is the real spicy part. Tap 10 untapped elves you control. Each one loses 10 life. You gain 10 life. So, my goodness. I mean, now 10 might seem like a lot, but yeah, it's really not. And Elfball Tribal, I mean, being able to just dump a ton of elves into play, go get more elves, dump a ton more elves into play, make elf tokens, and again, this commander can, of course, make you elf tokens, yes, and there are ways to pump this commander to help her hit even harder so you can make even more tokens, and of course, there's other ways to make elf tokens even quicker than that, so yeah, you're going to flood the board in absolutely no time, activate that ability, drain your opponents. You've got ways, of course, to do that multiple times in the same turn. So yeah, your opponents, once you get going, really won't stand a chance with this Elf Ball. Just disgusting, just Elf Ball synergies, essentially. Let's just say that. So yeah, with this episode, again, me taking you through in tactics. The first tactic I'm going to take you through, though, is going to be on some very specific kinds of elves. And those elves are, well, dorks. My words, sorry. They are mana dorks. I'm not calling them dorks. They are mana dorks. They are elves that can actually help tap for mana so that we can utilize them to cast even more elves or more spells. And yeah, we've got a ton of them. Elves of Deep Shadow is a great one. Taps for a black mana. It's going to deal 1 damage to us. 1 damage is no big deal, especially in a format you start off with 40 life. And of course, we've got ways, again, like our commander to actually gain life. So yeah, this is a great low-to-the-ground elf that can help us fix our mana. Elvish Mystic. Yeah, one of many elves like it that can just tap for a, single green mana. That costs 1. Like, Finehorn Elves. Exact same thing, essentially. Land of War Elves. Exact same thing again. Some redundancy in this deck is definitely not a bad thing. Having a lot of low-to-the-ground elves that we can get out early and often that can tap for mana can be great. Narup Trapper, very specific with this one, actually. Can tap, pay 1 life, add green to your mana pool, spend it only to give, spend it only to cast it on an elf spell, which is fine. We've got a ton of elf spells in this deck. Obviously, this can tap for, 1 for basically most of our spells. On top of that, tap target attacking elf you control gains death touch on the turn. This can make our commander or any of our elves even more deadly, which can be great. Beastcaller Savant can be a great one that we can utilize right away. Hey, Hasty, and also tap, add 1 mana of any color mana pool. So again, complete mana fixing with this one. And you can only spend it for creature spells. Yeah, most of our spells in this deck are creature spells, so this can really help us out in a lot of situations. Next up, we've got Elvish Archdruid. This one can be a great one. ++1 for our other elves, so a great anthem effect. And then also, it can tap for a green for each elf we control. This can get really out of hand. Again, this can tap for an absurd amount of mana in absolutely no time. Paradise Root, a great protected mana dork. Hexproof as long as it's untapped. Tap for 1 of any color. Great mana fixing with this one as well. Incubation Druid. If we get some counters on this, this can be really, really good. Tap at 1 mana of any type that a land you control can produce. So usually both of our colors. And if it's got 3 counters on it, we are going, or sorry, if it has 1 counter on it, we're going to add 3 mana to our mana pool instead. So yeah, this again, it can be a very effective, very efficient mana dork. And if we need to adapt it to get that counter on it, we can, though there are other ways to do that as well. Finehorn Elder, taps for 2. Great, really efficient for 3 mana. Green Weaver Druid, exact same thing. Incredibly efficient, but not quite as efficient as Land of War Tribe. This is a 3 mana, tap for 3 mana dork. This can just really skyrocket us really early. Again, just picture, a turn 1, Elvish Mystic, followed up by a turn 2, this. Turn 3, I mean, as long as we're hitting our lands, right, that's what, 6 mana that we have on turn 3? No, 7 mana that we have on turn 3. Gross. So yeah, things can get really out of control. Speaking of which, Wirewood Chandler, kind of like an Elvish Archdruid, but even better in some circumstances. Tap for X mana of any 1 color, where X the number of elves we control. Actually, take that back. Elves on the battlefield. This counts your opponent's elves as well. So yeah, this could be a hypercharged, just massive mana dump for us. Canopy Tactician, another one that is, another great anthem for us as well. Another great lord. Other elves +1, taps for 3 mana. Again, we've got a lot of effective ways to tap for a ton of mana. Rift Sower, another great turn 1 play potentially. Spend 2 for a single green mana, and it's going to hastily come into play, and we can tap for any color. And then finally, we've got Death Bloom Ritualist, a great one. Hey, tap, add X mana of any one color, X the number of creature cards in your graveyard. The longer the game goes, the more creatures are probably going to be in our graveyard, and the more this can tap for. So yeah, this can tap for a ton of mana. Now, of course, these aren't the only elves that are helping us out with ramp, though. We've got other elves that can help us out in a different way. Let's talk about the next tactic, landing a hand. Very clever, right? A Sky Shroud Ranger is a great one. Tap, put a land from your hand into play. Only as a sorcery, that's fine. But yeah, basically, hey, when you're drawing cards, when you're getting those lands in your hand, great, get some extra lands in your hand as well. Land of War Scout, basically the exact same thing. No restriction, though, it's sorcery speed. Get a land from hand on the battlefield. Then we've got Elvish Guidance, so an enchantment that can help us based on the number of elves we have. Enchant it to one of our lands, and then that land is going to tap for an additional green mana based on the number of elves in play. Again, that counts your opponent's elves as well if they have any, but yeah, just hypercharge one of our lands to an absurd degree. Farhaven Elf. Entering the battlefield, go get a basic land, which either be a swamp or a forest, into play. Tap. Harvest Season. This is going to help us get an absurd amount of lands. Basically, we're going to search our library for X basic lands, for X the number of tapped creatures we control, get those lands on the battlefield, then shuffle for only 3 mana. Again, we've got a ton of elves that can tap, essentially. Let's just even say that, okay, later on in the game, we're using this, we use our commander's ability, right? Tap 10 untapped elves we control. Counting our commander, it's 11. We cast this for 3 mana. We go get 11 lands. So yeah, I mean, early in the game, obviously this can be a great way to ramp by, 3, 4, 5, 6 lands. Later in the game, an absurd amount, even more than that. Springmoon Druid, another great elf that can help us out. Hey, enters the battlefield, sacrifice 1 land, go get 2 into play. Tap, kind of like a Roiling Regrowth, essentially. Wood Elves, a great way to just utilize mana right away. ETBs, go get a forest into play, untap. So again, you can utilize it right away. So in the next tactic, we're talking about even more elves that can help us out with mana. Yeah, there are even more than this. Birchlore Rangers is a great one. Tap 2 untap elves you control. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So basically, hey, even if your, elves aren't dorks, now they are dorks. So yeah, we can utilize them as well to just ramp even further. Pretty crazy. So yeah, this is just a great card. Gallagher is another great card as well. Another creature in his battlefield under control. Choose one that has been chosen this turn. So this one can reset essentially in each turn, which is great. Get a counter on it? Sure. Gain 2 life? Sure. Create a treasure token? Yeah, it's a tap treasure token, so we can't utilize mana right away. But again, a great way to build up a giant resource for us to utilize throughout the game with this. Speaking of a resource to utilize, Jaheira, Friend of the Forest, a great card for a deck like this. Tokens you control have, add green. Again, basically turning any of our tokens, including those treasures that Gallagher makes, into mana rocks for us, or yeah, our elf tokens that we're going to be able to make as well with a variety of ways, into mana dorks as well. So this can really hypercharge our mana. Rishkar can help out in a different way. ETBs, we get a counter on up to 2 creatures, and then creatures that have counters on them can tap for green. So yeah, we've got ways to get counters on our creatures, and this can be a great way to just basically, again, turn all of our creatures into mana dorks that have counters on them. So yeah, another effective way to ramp with elves. Yeah, there's a ton of them. Next up, though, let's talk about some ways to make our tap effects even more impactful, whether, again, that's our mana dorks or our commander's tap effect as well. And we've got an elf, of course, that can help out with that. Yeah, go figure, an elf can do that too, right? Copperhorn Scout, a very low to the ground great elf for this deck. Whenever it attacks, we untap each other creature we control, not just attacking creature, any of our creatures. So it's not just, a way to essentially give our creatures vigilance, which it definitely can do that, but also it is a way to really take advantage of those tap effects. I mean, again, just with our commander. All right, again, we can very easily, obviously, as I've demonstrated, get a ton of elves into play. Easily up to, that 10 amount for our commander. Tap our commander, tap those elves, swing our Copperhorn Scout, untap our commander, do it all again, with all those elves again. So basically, drain our opponents for 20 in a turn. Yeah, our opponents won't last long once they're set up properly. Vitalize, very easy way to do it again. Hey, single mana, untap all creatures you control at instant speed. Fantastic. And then we've got Great Oak Guardian. ETBs, it's going to give all of our creatures +2/+2 until end of turn, and then also it's going to untap them too. So yeah, for 6 mana, that's going to be well worth it. And with this, yeah, that's going to be very easy for us to even just net mana on again with all the mana dorks in play that we have. So yeah, we've got plenty of ways to take advantage of untap effects like these. Now, as good as all these cards are that I brought up so far, there is one, in my opinion, that stands above the rest, and that is the Golden Pig of this deck, which of course is the #1 card ever, 99. And the Golden Pig for this deck is Cryptic Gateway, a fantastic card that I'm so happy they just reprinted, because now it's just a 27-cent card. And this card I think was like $5 or $6 for the longest time, so I could never use it, but it's finally budget again. Here we go. Tap 2 and tap creatures you control. You may put a creature card that shares a creature type with it from your hand on the battlefield. Basically, tap 2 elves, put a elf from your hand into play. That's basically all you need to do. You now don't even have to pay for your elves. You just basically tap elves to get them into play for free. So yeah, this is an absurd way to do this. This is an absurd way to just, keep utilizing your elves with tap effects. Then you can untap them with other effects to get more and more elves into play. Again, Elfball is called that for a reason. We can just, just roll out of control essentially and just demolish our opponents with something like this. This is a card that you can get an absurd amount of value throughout the game. In my opinion, definitely worthy of the title of Golden Pig. Now we're going to be moving on to our next tactic, though. And yeah, we've got ways to get even more elves in play, because we've got ways to make a ton of elf tokens with the tactic that I'm calling Token Time. Yeah, we've got Llanowar Mentor, a great card. Hey, pay a green, tap discard a card from your hand, make a Llanowar Elves that can tap for a green. So yeah, basically just a way that we can just kind of generate a bunch of mana dorks with this. Sylvan Offering, a way to make a ton of elves at once. Choose an opponent, you and that opponent each get an XX Tree Folk, and also choose another opponent or the same one, make X 1/1 elves. So yeah, we can be very political with this as well. We can make some deals with this and yeah, just make a massive amount of elves out of absolutely nowhere. Then we got Prowess of the Fair, a great way to replace our elves when they die. Whenever another non-token elf is when you're graveyard from the battlefield, we can make a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. So again, replace your elves, your non-token elves when they die with a token elf, which can help us out in a lot of scenarios. Lizalana Huntmaster, speaking of making token elves, hey, whenever you cast an elf, now you get a 1/1 elf. Great. What's not to love about that? Just double up on your elves essentially as you are going along. Speaking of which, Elven Ambush. Yeah, instant speed out of nowhere. Let's just make a 1/1 elf for every single elf that we have. Every single one of our elves, we'll just double it up with another one. Yeah, again, this is a great way to just out of nowhere be like, your opponent's maybe like, oh, they don't have, the amount of elves that they need to actually activate their commander. Oh, no, out of nowhere they do. And then they're untapping, and now we're gone. So yeah, Imperious Perfect is another great one as well. +1 to our other elves. So again, another great Anthem effect. We've got quite a few of those. And also, pay a green, tap, make a 1/1 elf. What's not to love about that? Again, great ways to make our elves even more effective. Next up, though, we've got a tactic that I'm calling Small But Mighty. Again, we've got ways to take our opponents out. A lot of ways to do so, one of which is our commander, and other ways which are, work in combination with our commander, let's just say. Starting with Shaman of the Pack, ETBs, target opponent loses life equal to the number of elves we control. That's going to be a ton of elves, so we can drain one player for a ton with this. Timberwatch Elf, we can make one creature incredibly deadly. Tap target creature gets +X/+X until I determine X number of elves on the battlefield. Again, this counts our opponent's elves as well if they have any. We can actually make a deal with an opponent with this too. Like, let's say they're attacking with a creature, or they're going to attack with a creature that's massive, and maybe it can hit really hard. Maybe it's got double strike, and they're going to be able to attack an opponent potentially if we convince them to do so. We can pump that a lot with this. It doesn't say creature you control. Or, more likely we're just going to be, pumping our own commander to have it hit even harder so that we can make a ton of elves with it. Elderfang Venom, a great card. Attacking elves you control have Death Touch. Again, making our commander even harder to block. All of our elves harder to block. And whenever an elf we control dies, we're going to drain our opponents as well. So our opponents get drained with that too. Speaking of draining as well, Scamfar Shadow Mage. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we choose one. We're going to drain our opponents based on the number of creatures we control that have a creature type in common, which of course is going to be elf. Or we can gain a life. No, let's drain our opponents most likely. Immaculate Magistrate, another great way to pump our commander or other creatures as well. Tap, you get a counter on a creature for each elf you control. So this is a permanent pump effect. This one can be incredible, again, especially with untap effects. Next up, though, let's move on to another tactic, talking about how we actually can dig down deeper into our deck to get the cards that we need. And of course, we've got some elves that can help with that as well, right? So we've got Miara, Thorn of the Glade. Basically, whenever it or other elf we control dies, we can pay 1 to gain 1 life and draw a card. Nice. Definitely worth it for the 1 mana. Sign in Blood, 2 life, 2 cards. Yeah, sure, that's fine with us. And yeah, this actually can be a way to finish opponent off that might be really low on life as well. Scamfar Avenger, whenever another non-token elf or berserker, most likely an elf, we control dies, we draw a card and lose 1 life. Gonna be well worth it. Harmonize, very simply, pay 4 mana, draw 3 cards. Great, very effective, very efficient. Read the Bones, scry 2, draw 2, lose 2. Very effective, very efficient. Basically card selection first, then card advantage. Definitely worth the 2 life. Wirewood Herald, an elf that can actually go get us another elf, so it's great elf tutoring essentially. When this dies, we go get any elf from our deck into our hand. A great card for this to get the exact elf that we need for the situation that we are in. Voice of Many might be that one if we need to draw some cards. ETBs, draw a card for each opponent that has less creatures than us, and Yeah, that's probably going to be all of them. Again, we have Elfball. We've got a ton of creatures. We're going to meet that requirement a lot of times. It's basically just going to be harmonized on an elf. Motor-Vine Reclamation. Again, when our elves die, hey, let's gain some life. Let's draw some cards. Every single time a creature we control dies, token or non-token, it does not specify. Gain 1 life, draw a card. Dramatic Revelation. Gain a life for every single creature. Or sorry, draw a card for every single creature we have. Gain 4 life for the bigger creatures that we have. Yeah, this can just be a way to say, okay, I just dumped my entire hand of elves into play. Let's, pay 5 mana. Go draw more elves to then dump into play. Yeah, we can just keep this going at an absurd rate. And speaking of which, Soul of the Harvest, hey, whenever any creature enters the battlefield under our control that is non-token, we draw a card. This is not an elf, but still, it is one that can just really contribute to a deck like this. Moving on, let's talk about some ways to throw a wrench into our opponent's plans. We're going to break some stuff, and yeah, we've got some elves that can help with that. So let's start things off with Viridian Zealot. Pay 2 green, sacrifice it, destroy an artifact or enchantment. Yeah, when the right enchantment or artifact is out there that we need to take out, do so. And keep in mind, there is no tap, required. 1 and a green, just sacrifice, so this can be tapped, and we do so. Reclamation Sage, destroy something on an ETB, artifact or enchantment. Great. Spreading Renewal, flexible card. Hey, either make a 2/2, elf knight, so an elf, great. Go ahead and make a 2/2 out of nowhere, that's great. Or destroy an artifact or enchantment, and we can actually invoke this. So a lot of times we can actually just cast this for free. We can also utilize our creatures by tapping them for Null-Made Shepherd. Tap 4 untap creature you control, destroy target artifact or enchantment. It's going to be really hard for our opponents to keep anything in play when we have this out there because we can just destroy a lot of things. Again, we're going to have an absurd amount of creatures in play to tap and destroy those pesky artifacts and enchantments our opponents have. We can just destroy all of them at once, though, with Fate from History. It's going to destroy all artifacts and enchantments. And, yeah, everyone who has one gets a 2/2. Cool. Enjoy your 2/2 bear. Destroy all the artifacts and enchantments, though. Crippling Fear, we choose a creature type. Elves. Creatures that aren't that type, get -3/-3. So our elves are fine. Everything else is going to get shrunk or taken out. Speaking of which, Elvis Dreadlord. Basically the exact same thing. When it dies, all non-elf creatures get -3/-3 until end turn, and we can encore it for a massive board wipe that is going to be, again, one-sided. Ruthless Widower, another elf that can help us out. Beginning of each player's upkeep, they sacrifice a non-elf creature. Yeah, our elves are going to be fine. Opponent's creatures are not going to be. And Garrick's Wake, a one-sided board wipe, a fantastic one again. It's 9 mana. We've got an absurd amount of ways to ramp in this deck. Easy for us to cast a 9-mana spell. Destroy all creatures you don't control, planeswalkers you don't control. Great one-sided board wipe that can really set our opponents back a ton. Now, next up, though, the next tactic we're going to talk about, the exact opposite of this, essentially. We're talking about protecting our own things. We're going to start things off with Golgari Charm, which can actually, do both. It can break stuff that our opponents have. It can destroy, an enchantment. It can also make creatures -1/-1 till end turn if we want that, or it can regenerate each creature that we control. So this can be a great way to protect our team from a potential board wipe. Wrap and Vigor, not as flexible, but again, basically a great way to protect our team for this 2 mana. Hey, all of our creatures can regenerate, so it's gonna be a great way to protect them with an unexpected board wipe, or an expected board wipe, but an unexpected play that can protect them. And our opponents might not, see it coming. Swift of Boots, another great way to give our creatures haste. And Hexproof, for just 1 mana, if we've got, an elf that's coming into play like a Wirewood Channeler, that's gonna be able to tap for a ton of mana. So basically, again, a way to just utilize that resource right away, be able to, just gain more mana probably than we actually put into the actual spell, or that we actually put into the equip cost for this. And also, haste and hexproof can be a great way to protect our commander as well, and to utilize its ability right away, too. But now that we've talked about every single non-land card in this deck, let's quickly talk about, well, one of the highlighted lands for this deck, and that is going to be Skemfar Elder Hall, a great card for this deck. It's going to enter the battlefield tapped and just taps for a green, but it does have a fantastic effect. Pay 2 black, green, tap, sacrifice it. Up to 1 target creature you don't control gets -2/-2 until end turn. You get 2 1/1 elves, activate only anytime you cast a sorcery. So basically, we can take out a small creature with this. It's going to be great, or just, shrink a creature to make it more manageable for us. And also, again, a land that can help us make even more elf tokens to add to our elf count. Again, that they can be used, they can be helped out in a lot of ways. Again, Jaheira can help them out, basically make them mana dorks. Our commander can utilize them to drain our opponents. There's a lot of great effects with this, and this can just be a great card. And again, not really taking up a spot in our deck, just being in one of our lands. But yeah, Lathril is a fantastic elf tribal commander. You can really get out of control in absolutely no time with a commander like this, and with the amount of elves that you have that can, well, help get other elves into play and, ramp you further and do some really powerful things. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Hope you enjoyed the deck tech. If you are interested in this deck, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.